history of our sport, and it's definitely interesting for everybody to see what's going to happen throughout this week. And my opinion is that it's different. There is certain differences in blue clay comparing to the red clay. We can talk about this for a long time, but I try to keep it as short as possible now that we already have blue clay in front of us for this year. I try to prepare it for it as best as I can, and it's obviously the same for everybody. The only thing that is a little bit disappointing from a player's standpoint is that this was decided without players agreeing on it. So that's the most disappointing thing, really. Because I haven't tested the court, and as much as I know, most of the top players have not tried blue clay, and so if you don't have, especially top players, testing the court and agreeing for this change, that should mean something.
I'm not a big fan of the blue clay, but that's what it is today, and just try to adapt my game as good as possible to play well here, and that's the most important thing today. I'm feeling good, that's the most important thing. The health is one of the things that if you are not in almost perfect conditions, it's impossible to compete in a sport like that.
I've played some good tennis here over the years. Also, I think from the last three, I was in the finals twice and the semis once, and one of the finals I was able to beat Rafa, and so I've been really successful here at this event. This year, obviously, a bit different. We've got some blue clay coming. It's the first tournament back for me on clay, and it's a tricky one, especially knowing how well all the other players are already playing. But I hope I get through the early rounds, and then hopefully find my range and start to play really great tennis.
Some interesting thoughts from the big guns. Of course, no Andy Murray this week because of a back injury, but Roger Federer saying it's a tricky one. Rafa, not a big fan of the blue clay. And perhaps most interesting of all, Barry Novak Djokovic saying for him the most disappointing thing was that the decision was made without the players' agreement, which does seem to be a very risky policy as far as the organisers are concerned.
Yeah, Rafa was also mentioning that in Monte Carlo, Marcus. Exactly right, because the tour is as healthy as it is now. People want to watch tennis because how good the top four are, and also the next category of players, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to sell the tickets. They're the ones who are going to get the TV companies to be able to pay the money to watch it. But there is the danger that if you just consult the players and let their decision take, then we're going down dangerous ground. Because look, I think the mess that they've got with the schedule, having the World Tour final starting the day after Paris,
just
Masters,
to make the season finish earlier,
to me is ridiculous, because that's what the players wanted. So there is a balancing act, but I'll go back to ultimately the top four are the most important, and I think not to just ask them. I mean, they could have even asked them and then gone their own direction, but to not even ask Novak, Rafa and Federer, I think is wrong. I mean, they haven't practiced on it. They've had the court, haven't they? The blue court was it the last couple of years in Madrid. But to say to Rafa, oh, by the way, I know you've got to play tomorrow, but can you just have 45 minutes practice on your blue court before your quarter-final match? That can't happen. So I do see the player side of it. I think it looks great, but I think ultimately it might have been better to just go for a couple of lower level tournaments, something like Estoril last week, even Munich last week. Try it out and see what the response was. But to sort of go in such a big tournament 2 weeks before the French Open, when the players are creatures of habit, we know that they don't like to disrupt their rhythm going forward into such a massive tournament that is the second Grand Slam. So I think that's their concern.
Of course, it is the same for everybody. Thanks for all your emails. This is certainly a subject that's provoked a lot of interest. Maureen in Perth in Scotland says, think the blue clay's excellent for TV viewing, can see the ball clearly in flight, and the players clearly often lose track of the ball on the red clay. I don't know why some players aren't liking it, as there's no difference from the red clay. That has dye in it too. Nikki in Leighton Buzzard, blue clay looks like a court for toddlers to play on. I can't concentrate because I have to keep reminding myself that it's not a hard court, it is actually clay. Ridiculous. Just imagine dyeing the grass blue or red at Wimbledon. Lynn in Devon, I think the blue clay looks awful. Can't wait for next week in Rome and get back to normality. Matthew in Liverpool, blue clay looks good. As you've been saying, it plays quickly, but that's usual for a freshly laid surface. And Simon says, I think the blue clay is much easier on the eye, brings something different to the clay court season. These pros should be used to adapting to different court types and surfaces, so it shouldn't be an issue at all. We've got a real mixture. Nobody can really seem to agree on this.
That's the beauty of it. It's a talking point. People have their opinions one way or the other. I think it would be dull if no one had an opinion. It was, oh, well, it's just another week. So
yes, it has provoked.
I guess the tournament have got what they wanted.
It's provoked some interest. Oh, there was one more email which was I've now lost it.
Although I must add, Marcus, the tournament won't get what they want next year if they don't turn up the top four.
Well, that's going to be the key. The one other issue that's been raised today, actually by Lindsay. So much discussion going on with regard to the blue clay. What about the dresses the ball girls are wearing? I must be getting old because I've not really noticed it, but I'm sure that's a subject that, as usual, is close to your heart. But of course, as you said earlier, they used to have I think they've still got the model ball girls as well. So
you haven't noticed?
No, I've been watching the tennis, actually. You know, that's all I care about.
Marcus Buckland, full of lies.
The other thing we should just say, actually, I'll go back to the point I made right at the beginning of the programme with regards to Rafa in particular, who, as we know, doesn't like Madrid, particularly because of the altitude. His results there have been, shall we say, slightly less impressive than everywhere else on clay. I mean, a potentially great thing for him because he's got an excuse if he loses to Djokovic, hasn't he?
He will find something to make him be the underdog, and it's worked for him. Although I think he really is scraping the barrel at the moment because of how good he's been in Monte Carlo and Barcelona.
Yes.
So again, it's another talking point.
Well, as he said just a few moments ago, he's feeling really good at the moment, and that has to be bad for everybody else.